Hey everybody, I'm Sam Solomon and this is Signal Tower, the show where we talk about everything tech, design, and education. I'm here today with Andrew Brant, who is the founder of Mount Zion Press, a new Chicago art collective. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you begin the program today by just telling us a little bit about your background and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Andrew Brant, and I run a screen print shop and art collective called Mount Zion Press. We're about 6 months old as it stands right now. And what it really is right now is myself. I have a website going. I've got a screen print press. I've got a pile of t-shirts. I've had a few shows down the line. I've got a lot of friends who I can promote through it. But we're really trying to just have a way to promote Chicago artists and make some good designs and do some good for the world, in printmaking.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so how did you get started in print?
That's a really good question. So when I was younger, I had a job at a screen print shop. But what they did was just pretty much whatever would come in the door. Like the shop was for like the local high school, and they had designs for like the Liberty, Missouri Blue Jays, and that was the shop. And they did letter jackets and whatever else. But we really just did pretty much whatever job would come in the door. And a lot of our clients ended up being like the cross country team, or the dance troupe in town, or the cheerleaders, or whatever else, or the fraternity in town, or like the bank, embroider their shirts or something like that. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, whatever needed. Everybody, whatever needed a logo on something, needed a garment, like we're your place. Now everything we did was new. Like you couldn't take us a shirt and we like just put something on it. It was all bulk orders. It was all big stuff, and with some individualization. Now, that wasn't, as a designer, it wasn't the most inspiring thing. It was really fun to try within these confines to be as creative as possible to try to make logos, but I'm not a big sports guy. It's not something that I just go to naturally, but it did teach me how to do things technically very, very well. So I pick on cheerleaders because it's so out of character for me. But making cheerleading clothes is really pretty fascinating because you've got a new group of girls every year who need a lot of stuff, and they need a shirt and a hoodie and a uniform and a bag with their name embroidered on it and like all this stuff. And they also they pay a lot of money for it, and they're also really sticklers for quality. So a lot of this stuff actually, while it has to look nice, actually has to stand up to a fair amount of abuse.
Right.
Cheerleaders actually get hurt quite a bit, and it's a real gym bag, and these sorts of things. And it still has to look really nice at the end of the day. So I learned a lot of that, and it made me really happy, even though I'm like the last guy you'd ever find at like a pep rally at a high school or something like that, to like go to like the Chinese restaurant in town and see like these 50 high school kids with like, and I knew that I had made this shirt that they were wearing. Like that was really fun. And I really took the screen printing side of it. Like there's embroidery side, and there was applique, and the screen print thing was really something that I loved because I could jump into Photoshop and Illustrator. I loved like just pulling the squeegee across the shirts and making the screens and getting messy and throwing and experimenting with that. So that was really fun. And then from that, I started going to screen print shows, and I left that and I moved to Chicago, and I realized that I wanted to do this myself. And so I started out like anyone would. They have this tens of thousands of dollars of equipment that can pump out thousands of shirts like in an hour or something like that. Cost whatever. And I got the most basic thing you need to screen print. Like, so you can go to Dick Blick's and for like the art store down in the Loop, or a hardware store, and for like $50 you can buy a halogen work light, you can buy a screen, which is just like a piece of wood frame with like mesh on it. It's a little emulsion, which is just like the chemical on it.
Right.
And some ink and a t-shirt, and that's it. And so I did that, and I made my first screen in my apartment, and I almost burned it down because you have to take off all the safety features of the halogen work light to like expose the screen, right? Because it's like a light sensitive thing, and my like chair started smoking because it was like set up all wonky in my bedroom, and I realized like that was for the birds. So I found a place called Ryonet and at one of the shows, and I met one of the owners, and the owner had a really cool philosophy. His philosophy was when they were, him and his friends were younger, they were in a band, and they got asked, and they made T-shirts and they screen printed, and these guys would come up to them and say like, "Hey, could we get T-shirts for our band?" And they say no, but we'll sell you screen print equipment so you can make your own T-shirts. Yeah, and they've turned into one of the biggest educational resources and screen print supply, and now hardware designers, like for screen print hardware.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so before you get, I didn't want to interrupt you earlier because you're deep in a good story. But so tell me a little bit about these screen printing shows. What happens there? What are those like?
Sure. We have one in Chicago every year too. They're usually run by like people haven't heard of them unless you're in the industry, but like Printwear magazine is the big one. It's like a trade magazine, just like boats have trade magazines and whatever. And therefore, all the people who advertise in the magazine just to come and have booths, and it's just like Comic-Con or something like that, except it's just like this guy's selling, this kind of ink, and this guy's selling this kind of, and all the T-shirt companies are there. Gildan's there, and Hanes is there, and whatever.
Right.
And this guy's selling big equipment. Riley Hopkins is selling, like Riley Hopkins makes the giant screen print machines that have like 20 heads and are like giant beasts and stuff like that. And Ryonet has their big booth, and they're selling everything from like DVDs to ink to like special ergonomic squeegees to like whatever. And everyone who's there is like, it's a whole funny group of people, because a lot of screen printers are like kind of the real trick. And the thing that I always want to teach people about screen printing is that it's really deceptively simple. It is. And the thing that when you try to learn about it, and you go into these old screen print shops that, they're all around Chicago and all around Kansas City and all around everywhere, is that they're just these old, they always look like they're 50 years old, and they're run by guys just like, sitting there in like the overall smoking Camels. And they don't want to tell you how they do it because they're afraid that you'll learn how to do it yourself, because it's frustrating because you can mess up a lot and it's messy, and sometimes it can end up being some like long nights and stuff like that. Basically, the process is exceptionally simple. Like in a short afternoon, I could teach you how to do it. It's not like the concepts are not. It's not rocket science. It's not nothing too bad. And so these screen print shows are just a place to learn new techniques, learn new products, learn new whatever else. And in this case, I got introduced to a company that was what I was doing, which was, so I invested about $1,000, and I got a real 4-top screen print press that I could put onto a table, and I bought a wood table from IKEA that I could like mount it to and then take it off sometimes if I needed to use it for that, and a black light exposure unit. So it's like a bunch of fluorescent black light tubes with a big piece of glass over the top to expose the screen safely and coolly so I don't burn down my apartment. And then inks and the other random stuff that and tapes and stuff like that you need to get going on it. And then shirts I've got I get a wholesale account with a T-shirt distributor out in Bolingbrook that sets me up with shirts really well. So the nice thing is with them is that if you order shirts, they'll deliver by 4 o'clock. They'll deliver it by 10 a.m. the next day. So inventory is actually super tight. So I don't have to have a whole bunch on me. If you order a shirt from me, if you need an order of 50 shirts, I can have them to you on, it's Monday. I can have them on Thursday, because I could have the shirts in my place like tomorrow afternoon, and be printing on them and then get them there. So I don't have to keep a lot.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they really are a really big key to the business. Like they just carry the normal brands that most places carry, but the timing is nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so this is your second try at this business. Can you tell us a little bit about your first try?
Yeah, so my first try was when my day job was as a barista at a brunch restaurant up in M. Henry up in Andersonville. It's a wonderful place if you ever get the chance to try it. And that had me working 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day, getting paid minimum wage plus tips basically. Right. And no sick days, no anything. Just like anyone who's worked in a restaurant kind of understands that. And so I had a buddy of mine had opened up a furniture store across the street. So I worked out a deal with him. He let me work there 1 day a week, and I could sell my T-shirts there 7 days a week, and I would make all the money I made on the T-shirts, and then that was just my payment, you know. Whatever worked out, it did, and so it worked out pretty well. It also gave me, it gave me some, just put me out there. You know, people knew who I was.
Right.
They had my cards, whatever else. I didn't always have to be there, and I definitely made more than minimum wage. I made it, I was making pretty good money, but I was also just making like whatever just kind of random stuff. I was just like putting whatever I wanted on a shirt, and this idea would be like totally different, and throw that out there, and then this one would be like
Right.
Ginsburg with some rhinestone things on his hat, and this one would be a bunch of birds on a wire, and then through that I got some other set like Heartland Cafe up in Rogers Park started ordering shirts from me, and Vermilion Restaurant started ordering shirts from me for their staff, and other random things came in. So I would just, because I wasn't making a lot of money in my day job, I was just doing whatever kind of came in the door, and my branding was under my name, just Andrew Brant or Andrew Brant Tees or whatever else. I really didn't have a good brand there, but I was just kind of putting it out there, and it kind of worked. And I was able, within like 3 months, make enough money to find me, like I took a vacation to Paris and went to go paint there, which was awesome. But I was able to turn it around pretty quick. But it wasn't really super coherent. But, it was a pretty good start.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I guess let's get to the nitty gritty about actual printing. So, what do you need to know, I guess, before you, kind of start your own print business?
Well, I think that you need to know a bit about the equipment, and I think that you need to have you need to spend some time actually trying it. And there's a few places you can do that, at least in Chicago, is Little Street Art Center or Screwball Press. They've been making stuff forever. They made the threadless posters for a long time. These are some really talented people who will teach you how to do it. Spudnik Press is a great place where you can spend like $80 a month and join their screen print collective. So you don't have to buy your own equipment. You can just show up and it's all there, and you can use it. Now they won't teach you anything at all. They don't have classes, but they have the equipment at least.
Gotcha.
And you need to know that it's frustrating and it's time consuming, but that it's not that hard. You just need to watch someone do it a few times, and you'll absolutely get it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess what type of, operating expenses do you have doing something like that?
That's a good question. Screens themselves they're reusable, but they end up costing about like $20 a piece. Ink is so cheap, it's almost negligible. They cost $10 for a quart of ink. It's really more about time at this point. It's
Right.
about getting the time to do it, because I could make shirts affordable, but I have to put a minimum of like, say, 24 shirts on it, just because it takes about 2 days to make a screen.
Right.
You have to coat it in emulsion, let it dry. You have to put it down. You have to let it dry for 8 hours, expose it again, spray it out, let that dry again before you can even put ink across it. So I'm able to put in after the initial investment of $1,000 or so of equipment. As long as you're building it into the price of the orders and you're smart about ordering on time and that sort of thing, it's really not too complicated to make a profit.
Cool.
You can make a pretty decent profit on it.
And I guess what about managing your inventory?
It's a good question, because I think I can run at it and make too many shirts at once. So a lot of what I'm doing now is not just making everything that you want and not just doing any wholesale order that you want, but trying to make a very specific brand. And that means different inventory questions.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to show you. I'm wearing one shirt right now. So I've got this shirt. Let's say I've got this Chicago shirt, right?
Right.
And then I've got a couple other shirts that I made in a batch of 4 or 5, and I had a Nietzsche quote on it, and kept where like my logo in kind of different cool ways. And what I'm trying to do now is something that for myself is completely like, I'm trying to sell the brand and sell the image, and not take any client that I wouldn't have if I do take a side client, not do anything that I don't have complete artistic control over.
Right.
When it comes to inventory, that makes it trickier, because I tend to, if I want to make 6 shirts, I end up making 20 shirts. And then your inventory is always, you only make a profit on the last few that you sell. So like when you put in the money, if you make 20 shirts, you only make you only make profit on the last 5 that you sell. Everything else is, just like putting back your inventory costs.
Right.
Um, so that's really where it is. So I've kind of gotten smaller. I've gotten shorter runs. It means that I have to manage my time better because it means that I'll run out of shirts more often. But it's kind of the Toshiba like just in time
Yeah.
style of inventory management that I'm trying to hone in on that I think is serving me much better. Of have as little inventory in as possible at any given time and turn it around. It also means that if I end up making a shirt that sucks, I only throw in so much money into it, and
Right.
I don't have to worry about it. But then if I have something that's good, then I kind of have to keep running at it multiple times,
Right, absolutely. And you
Yeah.
kind of touched on on your brand a little bit, but
Yeah.
so how do you market yourself, or how are you planning on marketing yourself?
So I've got a few things. So we had our first show, kind of the launch of our website, was on March 16th. Right, 16th in March. So just a little over about a month and a half ago. And so that is after about 6 months of me working with one of my longtime artistic collaborators and friends, Kenton Quatman, on a website at mountzionpress.com. And we launched the website that night. And you can go to that website, you can find what you like, you can click it. It will send an order to me, and we'll ship it out to you in a couple of days. And I'm stalling here. Just a real quick question. How do I get myself out there? So we've got the website, and we had the show, and the show had a lot of people, like 250 people show up, and it was me and 3 other artists, Dan Ivik and Chris Kitahara and Kenton Quatman, putting their art there. And so that was kind of the start of the collective, because I've talked about myself a lot, but
Right.
it's really trying to grow from there. So right now it's just been word of mouth. Like I put up a couple Facebook ads, but they really didn't even do anything. I've got a mailing list from that show that's, I've got about 100 emails to go out that I'm going to send a coupon code out to and sort of start promoting that as I get more just in the next couple days. I'm going to use a company called Wise Canvas to do some more like email marketing and social marketing and that sort of a thing.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm planning on using. They're in 1871. They're a startup that I'm pretty close with, and I think that they've got some really cool, innovative ideas. Because this is where I'm a little weaker, is how to get marketing. But on the flip side, as simply an illustrator, the show was my shirts, but there's also it was photographs, and Dan Ivik drew this beautiful giant rice paper painting. And Kenton did these screen prints of Mayor Daley, and Chris is a photographer, so I had these photos. So it's just been word of mouth, and all of a sudden I've gotten a couple $1,000s worth of commissions based on that. And so
Wow.
I'm painting. Yeah, so I'm like, but they're like, I can show you a couple. So like this one is an improviser friend is of Second City.
Cool.
There's a facade of Second City here.
Yeah.
So this is that, and then this one I haven't even framed yet is some people are getting married, and she's Japanese, and they took a trip to Kyoto, so their mom wants to give them a wedding present. So here's a painting of Kyoto.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Thank you. So
That really is cool.
yeah, thank you. So and it's funny is because you go in with one mission, and I think this is important for any entrepreneur or anyone trying to do anything business related, is you go in sometimes with one idea, and sometimes the sales kind of pull you in another direction. And I'm pretty happy. I mean, I'm pretty happy painting. I'd rather be making art than selling art.
Right.
And if this is keeping me doing that, then I'm pretty happy. And if the business is coming in without me having to work too hard at it, then that's pretty cool. The question is, what is the longer term goal? And how do I steer it? While taking client to client to client, but also looking long term.
Right. Well, so how do you steer it? What 5 years from now? What's it going to look like? How
Yeah.
At least what's the end? I don't want to say what's the end goal, but
Right.
the distance goal maybe.
The distance goal is this summer is I'm going to move locations and find a space, kind of a live workspace where I can actually make it completely my own.
Right.
So that I can because it's important to me as an artist to actually kind of live where I make my art. I've thought about these collectives and I've thought about these things, and Sputnik, for example, was a great place that I could do everything I'm doing right now. I just have to go down to Damon and Hubbard and actually go all the way over there to actually make it. And their access is kind of limited and whatever, but their equipment is great. And like $80 a month or $60 a month, it's not that, it's pretty affordable, but it's important to me for my lifestyle and still have a day job and that sort of thing, to be able to work in my pajamas and go to sleep right when I want to, and just right there. Or I just want to walk over to my drawing desk and like make an illustration in like for 20 minutes and then just like go along with the rest of my day. Like that's important to me.
Okay, well, can you like dive into that a little bit more about like why it's important, as an artist, why it's important to kind of live where you work?
Right. So that's the long-term goal, is like a physical space, because I think that's going to be the key to it. And it's important to me to live where I work because you just can't force creativity. That's a great answer. Yeah, you just can't. And when I was so my first job as an illustrator was as an editorial and serial cartoonist and illustrator in college for the Loyola Phoenix, which was an awesome and completely independent newspaper with no editorial, no administrative oversight.
Right.
It was independent, self-funded, which I was very proud of. The fact that it was kind of the entrepreneur in me really liked that we paid for our own, all our bills ourselves without any.
Right. Yeah, that's the same way my school paper, the Auburn Plainsman, was when we worked there.
But, freedom.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going.
No, you're right. But real freedom is not owing anyone anything. You know. So it is. And so it was good because I had always had to work on a deadline, but sometimes, like editors would come up with this idea for a comic, and I was kind of rolling through how I was going to draw it, and I just realized sometimes you just have to like go to sleep, and in the morning you wake up, and then it's like it's there. Because that's one of those times, and then I need a deadline. Like I absolutely need. I'm not one of those artists who just like wants to go and create and be free and like go and like dance with with a butterfly net and things like that. Like I need a deadline. I'm a working guy. Like I have minimum wage mentality. Like, I need to work. And I need to have it present wherever I am. And that means walking around with my computer and my pens and paints wherever I go, even if I don't take them out one day. But sometimes I do just take it out at lunch, and all of a sudden I code a part of my website that's like exactly what I want it to be. Or I just like take out the sketchbook and I sketch it. But, just yesterday I was like working on a design for a website for someone, and I kind of had a roadblock in the design, and I got up and I did like a few more paintbrush strokes on this guy, and then for like 10 minutes, and then I went off and did another thing, and I kind of multitask a lot.
Right.
Or at least like, I don't think anyone can truly multitask. I kind of just like do serial tasks one after the other. So it's important to me. And then I went and cleaned some screens with a power washer, because you've got to use a power washer in my bathtub to like wash them out. So yeah, long-term goal is to get out of my bathtub, but that works for now. So it's really important for me to just live in that space, because I always like the line from the movie Frida, like a real painter paints because that's all they know. They'll paint because if they don't, they'll die. Like that's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any like rituals? I mean, I don't know if you do. Do you have any rituals or routines, like before you're about to illustrate something or paint something, or?
No, well, it depends on what it is. So not a lot. I'm not one of those people who like a baseball pitcher who has to go through his thing for luck or that sort of thing. Oh, my only thing is like I'm very I don't hold a lot of attachment to my drawings, and I think sometimes that's what put me into like the illustrator camp versus the artist camp of like. Something I'm just happy to throw it away as soon as it's like not what I want it to be, and I'm always working at making my only way to judge anything is this better than the last thing I did? Like, is that it? So that's it. Yeah, go from one painting to the next painting to the next painting, and I just judge one to the one right before it.
That's awesome.
That's all. I just really don't. It's a good question, and maybe if I thought about it for like, if I stepped on it, I'd come up with a routine, but not drink too much coffee. That's
so they didn't. All of us do. So
yeah.
So what about like where you draw inspiration from? Are there certain sources?
Yeah.
Where do you get it?
Well, the place where I started as an artist was postcards. So when I first moved to Chicago, my mom's an artist and an art teacher, and I took art classes growing up, but I never really took it seriously. And I always had sort of like basic artistic talents and like arts and crafts. My dad was a woodworker, you know, and made things with his hands all the time. And if he needed to like tile a bathroom, he would figure out how to do it, even if he'd never done it before. So I always kind of leaned on those kind of like DIY mentalities and kind of the sort of like basic artistic strengths that I had. I was just always confident in it, even if I sucked at it. Like I just didn't bother me. That's the attitude you kind of have to have. So I started sending. So I wanted mail, because if you've ever been a freshman in college and you go to that mail room and it's every day, you want to go every day, and most days there's no mail in your mailbox because who's mailing you anything, and it's really depressing. So me and my friends started doing things like signing up for catalogs, right? And like just so you could like get a catalog, yeah, get mail. Something would be there. The whole trip wouldn't be totally for waste. And then I wanted to send postcards to my friends because I missed them. But I was too cheap, and I thought they're too chintzy to like go buy postcards, you know. That's right. But I remembered my mom did a semester in France when she was in art school, and she paid these beautiful watercolors of France, of like Notre Dame and stuff like that.
Right.
And I remember that paper. I just remember that paper being like this thick, heavy paper. That was it. And so I thought, well, that's thick, heavy paper that I could put a stamp on. I could just like cut up, put a stamp on, and mail it to my friends. And I'll just like scribble something on the front, and you know I found that if I mailed 10 out to all my friends, I'd probably get like 2 or 3 postcards back, you know. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So I just started making 10 more, and then 10 more, and then 10 more, and at about 200 or 300 out, and I'm not even joking. Like I've honestly sent that many. I started to get a little better as an artist because and it was all motivated on getting mail back from people.
Right.
Then I did a semester in Rome, and that is when, as I was a musician growing up, and I did a lot more serious like artwork, like musical study and theory work and stuff like that. So that was always my go-to sort of like artistic inspiration.
Right.
But in Rome, for the first time, I went with just like a backpack and my stuff to live in a dorm room in this it was in a converted monastery, you know, that I lived in, just a tiny place. And all I had was like a set of watercolors. I got the same set right here, just like this little set of watercolors, and like 2 brushes from Dick Blick's. And I found a little art store I could buy watercolor paper from right next to the Pantheon. Like you go to the Pantheon and go to the left, and it's like 2 doors down, and there's a little art store. But so I just started painting postcards there, and they started getting better because I'm just surrounded by like amazing, beautiful buildings in Rome, and the Vatican was down the hill, and the Pantheon, and you're just like surrounded by this like Renaissance artwork. And and they started getting like, I think just by the inspiration of Italy, and then just my work had to get better because I'm trying to paint Michelangelo, like it has to. So they got kind of serious, and I kind of started thinking like maybe I should keep some of these. Maybe I shouldn't just like mail out for free every single thing I like make. And so when I came back, I had a show. I had a show of them, and while the show was up, I got the job as the illustrator at the Phoenix, and that gave me a lot of confidence because it was a weekly check, like for doing my drawings, and that definitely honed my skills. And it's still like I have a minimum wage mentality of like I work because I work. And one of my big inspirations was always John Goodman, who went to Hollywood and said, "Well, I got to make money somehow." And he was a carpenter and did other odd jobs, and someone hired him for an audition for a TV show or something like that. And he went, well, okay, well, they're paying me to do this, so I'll just do this then. And he got another gig, and he went, well, I don't know if I'm good at this, but they're paying me at it, so I'm going to do the best job I possibly can, you know, and just keep working, you know, because I just need to keep working. And that's an inspiration to me, just to constantly keep working.
We're talking about those postcards. Is there any of those postcards that you ever made that you wish you wouldn't have mailed away?
Not really. So like I said earlier, I don't have a lot of attachment to it. Like I had an art teacher once who had us work for like 3 hours on a piece and then rip it up at the end of class just to teach us that. Yeah, just to teach us that lesson. You know, like
it's a pretty good lesson.
Yeah. and so I kind of believe in that. I've kept two postcards that I intentionally like didn't mail out because I was like, okay, this one's mine. There was one night that was I was in that I was sitting on a bridge over the Tiber, and the sun was setting over the Vatican, and it was gorgeous. And I went and bought I didn't have any water, so I went and bought like a €5 bottle of water from a street vendor to like paint it really fast, and I painted it super fast. It was like done in like 10 minutes, and I kept that one because it's just like okay, and like it was just like a flash and it was done. And there was a wedding on a boat right below me, and those people were so happy.
Right.
So I kept that I don't know, I got to keep something. So I kept two. I've kept two that I'm not going to sell because, and at some point I'll probably add a third or something like that. But no, I take good photographs of everything so I can make reproductions and I sell them. And I sell throw pillows, lately of my artwork. So that's one like
Cool.
stuff like that. So I keep memories of all of it. So it's just like a photograph of your friend. Like you're never gonna be there again, but as long as I have a picture, like I do, okay. I just want to make the next thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't keep a lot of it, but so what do you think the best thing you've ever created is?
At this point, like I kind of think it's Mount Zion. Like I'm really very very happy with it. Like I'm getting to the point where I can help other artists. So Kenton sold a lot of work at the show, and he and I are collaborating on some T-shirt designs now, where he's got some cool designs, and I'm going to marry them with some of my handwriting and illustrative style, and make some T-shirts out of that. I've got another friend John who's got, and so I'm opening up artists that I know that I'm seeing pieces of what they are capable of, and then kind of showing them that they can do something else too.
Right.
Like Kendon makes a lot of websites, so and he draws a lot, but let's show him that like he can sell screen printed material and just like framed fine artwork. Chris does he did like the McDonald's ad campaign for the Monopoly campaign. Like he's a great photographer.
That's awesome.
But he can do fine art photography. He never even thought about that. And let's have a show around a theme. Like let's do something like a little more with a little more meaning than that, or something like that. Like you've got the skills. Let me just kind of show you the way. So that's what I'm really proud of. And then around the corner too, I'm to the point where I want to do something to help other people, sell some T-shirts and for some good causes, and have and a lot of the proceeds go to certain charities. There's just a lot of people around. The tragedy in Boston was awful, but there's a really great human response around. People ran towards those people to help them,
Right.
And then there's some people up in Milwaukee who immediately made a shirt that said like Boston Strong and donated it to the it's called the One charity in Boston, and so it raised like $300,000 in like a week for that.
Wow.
For the people who had been hurt. So I'd like to also focus on that as much as possible too. So to put some good out, as well as just like I can make cool designs, but this can be something a little bigger too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess there are a few kind of like personal things I'd like to ask you. So, looking back, what would you say your most valuable job or experience was, and what made it valuable?
Couple things. I've always taken jobs. I've almost always worked up until lately. I've almost always worked for small independent businesses, and like just being surrounded by entrepreneurs and knowing what they were like, working with them on a day-to-day business has been a huge inspiration. I was at a health food store, or worked at Yosemite Garden Center selling flowers, and working in Henry as a barista and as like a floor manager, and working at Roost and like making furniture for them, with people who like really had their skin in the game, like really had to make and do a little bit of everything, whether it was kind of like owner / janitor,
Right.
And I have to do a little bit of all of that. So that's I've been really lucky to be around a lot of really gifted entrepreneurs through all those places, and a sheet music place when I was really young and that sort of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. What about people you look up to? Who are they?
I look up to so many people. It's so hard to put any one person to it. Like that's a really tough one because I just like really find I'm the sort of person who can find inspiration in like anyone, and I tend to be a pretty positive person, and like tend to
Right.
So I think I can learn something from anyone. I like honestly do. I think anyone in the world could teach me something. Um, Big inspirations. Mm, um, Man, it's hard to put any one person. I mentioned John Goodman. I really do like his attitude and his like Missouri-ness about it. Like as funny as it is because he doesn't do anything even related to what I am. But I just think that anyone that puts out what it is that they want to do with a lot of integrity. Ian MacKaye is another person. How about that? Who started Discord Records and started Minor Threat and Fugazi, and always kept the shows $5 a show, and never like actually he never made a T-shirt because he always just wanted the music to stand first. And someone who does something with relentless integrity their entire life, like I think that's pretty amazing, and like it's true to the code of what it is that their life is about. At the same time, being completely DIY is amazing. Like anyone who can stand alone despite the world and build something and make something and put a dent in the universe is like very inspiring to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So there are probably a good amount of entrepreneurs that are going to watch this show.
Yeah.
For young entrepreneurs, what advice would you give to them?
No one owes you anything. Like you have to make this. You have to be resourceful, be relentlessly resourceful, and that no one owes you anything. And you're going to fail, and you're going to be turned down, and you're going to miss a sale. But that and someone is going to disappoint you that you work with. But you just have to be relentless, and that if you feel like you're entitled to something or you're better than something or that someone owes you something, then you're probably wrong, and that's where you're going to fail.
All right. If you've got one book, you have to tell people they have got to read one book. What is that?
Howl by Ginsberg.
All right. All right. Well, do you have any other comments? Other questions? I should have asked you stories you need to tell. Any other last minute things?
You sure about that? I could just like keep talking all night. I think you're asking a dangerous question. No, this has been really, really wonderful, and thank you, Sam, for letting me be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an absolute blast.
Yeah.
People can find you online, mountzionpress.com.
Yeah, mountzionpress.com, or you can always email me at mountzionpress@gmail.com. That's MTZion, ZION.
And I'll make sure I put the link in there so that
writing. Yeah, that's going to be the best place to find me. mountzionpress.com or mountzionpress@gmail.com is where you can always that goes right to me.
All right, well, Andrew, thank you for joining us. Everyone, thank you for watching. This is Signal Tower.